In the following, I would like to explain what the cause of Pseudocroup is from the perspective of Germanische Heilkunde. It will also become clear why Pseudocroup mainly occurs in the winter month. Pseudocroup is part of the healing phase of the Significant Biological Special Program, SBS for short, of the larynx. For the sake of simplicity, I will explain the process using the example of a right-handed girl. SBS is one of the territorial and separation conflicts controlled by the cerebral cortex, red group. DHS, Dirk-Hammer syndrome, is an event in which the girl experienced a fear fright and was scared. As with all SBS, the conflict takes place completely synchronously on the three levels of psyche, brain, and organ. The DHS starts the conflict active phase. Let's assume that the girl is surprised by the school's internal fire siren coming from the loudspeakers during the break on a Tuesday morning. She's frightened and runs out of the school because she's afraid that a fire has broken out. The fire alarm later turns out to be a false alarm. In her psyche, the girl now has obsessive thoughts about her conflict. She comes home from school and tells her parents about the event immediately and several times in the following days. In the brain, the active Hammer focus can be seen in the cerebral cortex in the sensory laryngeal relay. It is located in the female territory area. The Hammer focus ensures that the previously smooth squamous epithelial mucosa in the area of the larynx and vocal cords is broken down organically. This is also the biological meaning of the program, as the degradation allows air to be inhaled better and faster. The degradation depends on the intensity and duration of the conflict. If the fear-fright conflict is resolved, the girl enters the healing phase. Psychologically, she is now liberated. To stay with the example above, it's the weekend, school and the fire alarm are no longer an issue. The child has talked the fear out of her mind during the week, and the story has become irrelevant. In the first part of the healing phase, fluid accumulates in the Hammer focus in the brain. This can become noticeable through headaches. Organically, swelling causes the mucous membrane of the larynx and vocal cords to rebuild. The larynx begins to hurt and the voice changes. The girl becomes hoarse. Coughing sets in. The epileptoid crisis in the sensory fear-fright conflict is the absence. This often happens at night and you don't even notice it. During the crisis, the swelling in the Hammer focus subsides. In the second part of the healing phase, the Hammer focus is repaired with connective tissue cells, glia. The swelling also disappears organically, and in the end, the laryngeal mucosa and vocal cords are repaired. The hoarseness disappears. As a rule, the whole process takes place without shortness of breath. However, in children up to the age of 3, the diameter of the airways are relatively small in relation to the organs, so that swelling in the area of the larynx results in greater breathing resistance than in adults. The child therefore experiences shortness of breath more quickly and produces audible inhalation noises more quickly, which can easily cause parents to panic. Along with a hoarse, barking, dry cough, this is known as pseudocroup. That sounds something like this. I would also like to mention that the motor laryngeal relay with the motor speech center is located directly next to the sensory laryngeal relay. In addition to fright, the associated DHS can also be speechlessness. This SBS includes symptoms such as stuttering or word formation disorders. But that's not the point here. It's about Pseudocroup. So if there's an increased incidence of Pseudocroup in the winter months, infants must suffer more fright conflicts in the winter months. And what could that be? Actually, quite simple again. Put yourself in the shoes of a 2-year-old child in the dark season. How do you think they would feel if a monster or a skull and crossbones rang the doorbell at Halloween? And the nonsense doesn't stop. For centuries, Saint Nicholas has brought along with his servant Ruprecht his Black Pete, Child Eater, or someone else, depending on the region, to punish naughty children with a rod. And the nonsense doesn't stop there either. Take a look at these horror and frightful images of Advent festivities such as Krampus runs or Pärchen runs. Mind you, they are just 2 years old and their parents are celebrating the horror with them. And it doesn't stop. At the Christmas markets, tall, strange men with white beards and red costumes bend over her face and say, "Hoo hoo hoo, have you always been good?" One bomb after another goes off on New Year's Eve. Flashes of light flash through the night, and these traditions only come to an end during the crazy carnival season. So now it's time to wake up from the 2-year-old child and think. The festivities carry an increased risk of catching a fright DHS. If the children solve it, they get their Pseudocroup. This is why there is an increase in Pseudocroup in the winter months. To minimize the risk of DHS, it makes sense to protect children from the masquerade until they are mature enough to see through these things. However, since this is becoming increasingly difficult due to our unnatural way of life, here are a few tips from an emergency paramedic acquaintance of mine and from the internet, in case you should ever be involved in a Pseudocroup. Feelings such as fear, panic, and calmness are transmitted. When adults become anxious and panic, the child does too. This inevitably leads to an increased need for oxygen. And in a situation where the child is already struggling to breathe, it logically exacerbates the symptoms. Therefore, the top priority with Pseudocroup is to remain calm. Skin contact is reassuring. Hold the child in your arms. Keeping the upper body in an upright position makes it easier for the child to breathe in. To make inhalation even easier, rescue workers used to recommend a moist nose, i.e., letting the child breathe in cool, moist air. We always wrapped our daughter in a blanket, took her in our arms, and went to the open night window with her. A towel on the radiator, an open refrigerator door, or the rising steam from a shower have the same effect. Pseudocroup sounds worse than it is, and if in doubt, you can always call an ambulance. Of course, it's best to keep the children away from the nonsense in winter. No DHS, no Pseudocroup, and therefore no fear for the child.